project, Life Slice, which I've been doing, started last December. And like a lot of people here, I spend a lot of time looking at glowing rectangles sitting in front of my laptop. And of course, I was interested to know how I'm spending that time and what I'm looking at, and am I using my time effectively. And of course, I use some tools like Rescue Time. There's several of these that track all the pages you visit, and they give you very cool graphs. And I can see I'm 59% efficient this week, and things like that. But it doesn't really have a sort of visceral feel. And so I thought of the sort of humble webcam, which is this sort of awesome data collection device, just sitting there unused almost all the time, and what you could do with it. And it's really great because you already have it. It's free, and faces and pictures of yourself are very powerful. And I came to this idea after a friend of mine in Germany did this really cool sort of art project. He took pictures of himself every hour for like months, and then categorized it with the face.com interface. You can't tell, these are like thousands of little screenshots. The API is not that good because he's actually a very happy person. And so if you zoom in, you can see that he actually sort of mistakes sadness for intense concentration. So anyways, I said, that's really cool, and how do you do it? And he gave me this little bit of code that he had hobbled together. And I said, well, that's really cool. I can do that too. And I just sort of started running it to see what would happen. And being a bit of a geek, I just kept adding more and more things to what it would do every hour. And so since December, every hour it collects, does a picture of me, takes a picture of what's on the screen, so I see what I'm doing, records the application I was running and what URL I was on, if it's a browser, and my latitude, longitude, from the Wi-Fi signals. And this is what it looks like. So every day is a line. Midnight's over here, there's noon. You can see I've been up lately here. There's a really faint one here. I guess I couldn't sleep when I was up in the middle of the night. Over here, you get the total number of hours that the computer's on that day. This was a lot of work leading up here. And then you can see the little bars which indicate the weekends there. And then, of course, you can kind of flip the view, and you can see what was on the screen. So yeah, so here, up late watching some movies, working on this project, coding, things like that. And then, of course, you can just click and zoom in to kind of get the fine, granular view. So here I am. This is actually at the Internet Archive over here. That computer behind me, that is the Wayback Machine. And I was there for a conference, and apparently the speaker wasn't that interesting because I'm looking at my laptop, and what am I doing? I'm writing code. So at least I was being productive, I would say, with my time. And so that's kind of like the zooming in view. But then I also get lots of good insights going sort of zooming out with the whole big view. So here is 3 months of my time since December. This is actually a hard disk failure, not a vacation. And you can see sort of the late nights, falling asleep in front of the computer. This is embarrassing shots. This is an alternate view, sort of going the other way, but you can see down here the little maps. That was me back home in Colorado, and then back in the Bay Area at the Berkeley Quantified Self. And so how did I do it? Like I said, everyone's got a webcam, not that hard. So it's just a matter of pushing some bits around on the computer to do it. Even if you are, somewhat geeky, you know about the magic of the cron job. You can just enter a little command, and your computer will do something on any schedule you like. So I had it going away every hour, and what it does is it just writes out a bunch of files at the top of the hour. There's my face, there's a screen, there's a JPEG, and somewhat critically for a project like this, everything is stored locally. This was not a project that when things being shot up. You don't always look great in front of your computer. It's one of the things I've learned. Somewhat skipping ahead, perhaps. which I should be moving on to what I've learned. Am I advancing, or is this a really long 15 seconds?
I don't know, maybe it's stuck a little bit.
Not the most important line.
There we go.
So what did I learn? Well, I learned I'm not always pretty in front of the laptop, and but more metaphorically, a project like this is like a mirror, right? It sort of forces you to look at yourself, and a mirror with a very bright light where you see all the pores and stuff. I've caught myself in sort of how often I'm goofing off, and all the time in front of the laptop is not productive. I call it the spaced out zombie info junkie look. There's Reddit, YouTube, they're watching some not important presidential news. And so this is emotionally very motivating of I don't like myself like that. Caught myself checking the laptop in the car. I was pulled over to the side at the time, I promise. And then a really interesting side effect was now I know at the top of the hour that I'm going to be picture taking. And so I noticed, oh my God, I've got 8 minutes, and I'm looking at cat pictures. I need to turn the computer off or get back to work. And I think it's kind of cool that I'm trying to game the system, but it's forcing me to kind of be more productive, which is a very cool unintended consequence of having this thing going. And so doing this has inspired tons of other projects of what I could do. And one little one, which I'm just sort of getting started with and works partly, is to have the webcam running all the time, and it just watches for how often I smile. And so it's just a little program, and it just, whenever I smile, it logs it to a file and saves the URL to a delicious bookmark. But that's still kind of in the works. So more importantly is, this is really easy to do yourself if you want to do it. The little bit of code is all open source and all that, and I've put it up on GitHub. And yeah, maybe, am I stuck again?
No.
Oh, time. So it's all up on GitHub. If any of you are technically inclined, please feel free to contribute. I think there's a lot more things you could do with this data, more than just that simple visualization. And on the next slide, I've got the link where you can download it and get back to me, contact me about it. And yeah, this was Life Slice, and thank you for a great first few weeks in San Francisco.
Thanks,
You've created a big brother of yourself, and have you found that stresses you out at all, or are you happy that there's somebody watching you, even if it's yourself?
I made a bet with myself how long it would be before the words Big Brother were mentioned. It was within the first 10 words. That was so good. The question is, you created a Big Brother for yourself. Does that stress you out?
And the second question is, when are you going to videotape yourself at all times instead of a picture every hour? That's kind of
Why not videotape yourself?
at all times.
Right. To the first question, I think spying on yourself is different than other people spying on you. And I think the Quantified Self movement is all about spying on yourself. I'm sure Phil doesn't, publicize his spreadsheet on a public Google spreadsheet. That's kind of big brothery too. So you're being monitored enough by the outside forces, so you might as well monitor yourself more. It's kind of.
But do you feel any different about it? Or are you happy?
Do I feel different about?
Do you feel stressed by that observation that's going on?
No. There's a little bit of pressure, like I said, when I know the hour is coming to kind of shape up. But it's not. I know it's just. It's not going to be used against me in some way. It's an internal thing. And what's the second question? The all the time. That was a surprising thing, actually, that the periodic aspect is very nice, actually. That those sort of calming, the little light comes on, and it's like, oh, another hour has passed. And when I'm in the flow, it's like this little a little check, I'm doing good, I'm going. So I kind of like the periodic.
The periodicity, that's great. Here, more. Dave, how about? Yeah.
Just on the periodicity thing, the periodicity enables you to game the system, as you pointed out. So have you thought about either increasing the frequency or adding a randomness to it?
Have you thought about changing the periodicity or making it random?
Yeah, I actually started with half-hour increments, and I might go back to that. It was more the visualizing was hard to cram that much data in. And I think I like the half hour as far as for the aspect of getting me back on track. You know, a half-hour checking is good. And the random thing I thought about, like if I was a scientist wanting to get a very accurate idea of how I spend my time, the random would be good. But since I like the feedback of it changing my own behavior, having it on a set schedule I find is kind of good.
And if I can just follow with a comment, it seems that you've exported your superego. And that doing that periodically is an interesting twist on the nature of the superego.
Have you exported your superego? Yeah.
It's local and backed up.
More, yeah.
Oh, right here in front?
Quick question about productivity. I'm very interested in that. Do you find that having that immediate feedback helps your productivity over the long run, or is it just like a short burst?
I mean, right now it's just anecdotal. I should probably start tracking if this actually has it. But I think it has a long term. If I'm gaming the system and I just switch back to working, at the top of the hour, I don't generally go right back to 30 seconds later. Okay, now I can get back to whatever I was doing. Partly because then I know I'm damaging my own data, and then what's the point of doing it at all? There in the green.
Have you thought of mashing this up with your rescue time data to see if you actually do change in productivity?
Have you thought about mashing this up with your rescue time data to see if it affects your productivity in that sense?
Yes, I have, and I haven't done it, but I would love to do, more correlation between it all. Right there?
I think it's really interesting that the nature of authenticity comes to bear when you're changing the way that you are because you're being tracked. And so, who are you really in that context? It becomes an interesting question. And I don't know if you have any comment on that. But I was also interested in how you're tracking your efficiency and productivity.
Just kind of repeat a little.
It's almost how sort of authentic is the data, since I know I'm being tracked and maybe know when it's happening. And what was the second one? How do I track my efficiency? I mean, it's kind of a really deep question of what am I really? I think I'm a big proponent of the fake it till you make it, or if you pretend to be something long enough, then eventually you become that. And I'm not just going to have a fake coding screen on there every hour. So I can
spoof yourself.
Yeah. There comes a point where the self-deception doesn't hold up. And kind of to Phil's point too, I do have that sense of accomplishment when I can look back and see a whole run of yep, that's when I was doing that work. I was in the flow. And for tracking my efficiency, I mean, there's the rescue time, which kind of does that side. And then for my data, it's more anecdotal of I can just kind of flip through, and I kind of know what my productive screens look like, and they don't look like YouTube.
Okay, let's take one more.
Right here in front.
So your next project you were discussing was tracking smiles. Is that because you believe you can trick yourself into being happier by smiling more? Or is it just literally data collection? And if you think you can trick yourself, isn't doing it continuously going to defeat that purpose because you can't
Okay, so the question is about tracking smiles. Is the goal to trick yourself to being happier by smiling more?
No, that's not really the goal. I mean, to be honest, part of it was just a geek, can I do it challenge, and a kind of a broader interest in humans use emotion so much to communicate to each other, and the fact that my computer doesn't understand when I'm angry or when I'm sad. So And just as a possible way to quantify mood measurement, because there's lots of people who've been mood recording things. I thought this would be an interesting way to quantify the mood recording aspect.
Stan, that's fantastic. Thank you.